So I've got an interesting observation today. Lots of people really pay close attention to how they look, and very few people pay close attention to how they sound when they speak. Have you ever seen, or maybe even yourself, you've heard your voice on tape and you didn't like the way that it sounded? Um, this is quite common with people because, well, it surprises them how they actually sound. Just like if they don't look in the mirror and they look in the mirror, it surprises them the way they look. And how you sound actually has a huge bearing on the way you're presented to society and the way that you come across to other people in terms of your character. And I would say that it probably has a similar amount of impact as the way that you look, maybe even more, because, well, all of these things indicate a lot of things about a person. It indicates their self-identity, it indicates their self-esteem, it indicates their social class, their level of confidence, the amount of humor and playfulness they're putting in an interaction. The emotional core of the being is expressed through the voice. So let's go in a little deeper into this idea because, well, I've actually put a lot of thought in the way that I present myself and the way that I sound, and I spent a lot of time listening to the way that I speak and trying to work on that. And I've come a long way with this. Now, where I grew up, this is my first language, English, but I've also incorporated features of other dialects and languages into the way that I speak English, but it remains, at its core, I speak as very standard American English that I believe a lot of people would really find, well, standard Canadian English, which is, pretty much the same as American English, but with a sort of tonality and emphasis that I've gotten from, let's say, three different sources. Number one, my family were native German speakers from Slovakia, so the German language, particularly the Bavarian dialect of the Austrian dialect of the German language is what my family spoke natively. And I took a lot of my tonality and the way that I string together sentences emotionally. And yeah, I took it from them because I grew up with most of my family having that as their first language and speaking to me in English, which is why a lot of the features with which I speak English actually have some of this German vibe to it. So my grandparents, grandmother and grandfather, they were born in Slovakia, but they, spoke German as their first language. And yeah, they spoke with me in English because I kind of wasn't into the German as a child, but now I can speak it. But, and my dad sort of moved to Canada when he was a kid. So he spoke Canadian English very perfectly in a similar way to I do. The way in a similar way to the way I do, and with a similar tonality. But I think since he's lived in Canada most of his life, he sounds more Canadian than I do. But we are the same sort of. We have the same manner of speaking. So yeah, and I learned that from him. I grew up in a very wealthy neighborhood of Toronto where people speak in a quite distinct manner, I think, compared to the rest of Canada, I would think. This sort of upper class Toronto speak is very emphasized in terms of the enunciation and all that sort of way of conveying a certain confidence and dominance and position in society with the way that you speak. So I got a lot of that, and I embraced this because I like to be able to sound well spoken. Then when I moved to England, okay, let's backtrack. When I was traveling around Eastern Europe as well, I realized that a lot of the Germanness that I was perceiving from my family was also a sort of Slavicness. So I listened to the Slavic people and the melodies and the stories they were telling with the tonality of their language, and I put a lot of that into my language as well. And then basically also, yeah, I moved to England when I was like 28 years old. And basically, I learned how to speak English properly in accordance with the received pronunciation standard as the gold standard of English. So I've got a gold standard of a very refined North American English, spoken in a very standard way, and the gold standard of the very fine received pronunciation, spoken in a way with a little spice from the German and Slavic roots that are in my family and running through my veins, I suppose. So yeah, it is what it is. And I as a performer, as a singer, I became very cognizant of how I can use my voice to emphasize, to tell stories, to use tonality, to just like express my passion as a performer and all of this stuff. And yeah, it's so inspiring to be able to use the voice. And only actors, I think, can understand me on this, or radio hosts, or voice actors especially. How you use your voice affects the emotional tone. So while I might have betrayed somewhat my Canadian roots by not talking exactly like the people in Canada, I feel the internationalism of my lineage and sort of and my experience in life and the different cultures that are within me and I've experienced from outside have enriched all of this. And it leads to a very compelling voice that I talk to you with today. So how do you sound? And can you listen to yourself on tape? Because I certainly can, and I love it, because I love the way that I've developed my voice and my identity, and the way that my voice represents my identity and who I believe I am inside is how I express myself to the world in a way that's direct, straightforward, and shows you who I am. So this is me, the beast, the man, and hopefully someday a legend. And how do you sound? Because in North America, a lot of people speak very nasally. Very nasally, yeah. Oh yeah, I talk like this, and this is me. This is the way that I like to talk, and this is like how my identity, who I feel I am inside, radiates to the. Can you imagine how differently you would perceive me if I spoke that way all the time? Think about that. That would be a different identity. Maybe, yeah. Maybe you talk like that. Maybe you don't want to talk like that, and you can embrace deeper resonance in your voice, as I, as a singer, know how to do. And it's also the way that you emphasize certain words with volume and tonality. It's music. Speech is music. I find in Serbia, a lot of people very deep voice, but they don't actually refine the emotions behind it. So it feels like, so the Serbian one sounds a lot like they're not in control of their emotions, which is a very telling thing about the society in general. Maybe they're not. Maybe they just let it all out and they want to appear confident, but they also want to be emotionally out. And that's pretty much it. And when I speak Serbian, I sound more like that. The North American one sounds very superficial. And having divorced myself from that society in terms of my personal identity and all of that sort of stuff, having sort of like decided it's not for me as a long-term thing. Yeah, they're sending money from the States and stuff, but yeah. And the German one sounds to me, well, the Bavarian German one has a nice sing-song accent, but it's too uptight and too rule-based in the way people express themselves. The emotions are too tight. The American emotions are almost more free. British emotions also kind of uptight, depending on the accent. It's like they have a set of emotions that they're allowed to release and all this sort of stuff. But I really do like a very nice posh British accent and the way that they express things, especially the ones who manage to find a way to sound friendly at the same time as posh. And I try to do that. I try to sound friendly and approachable, and be able to release my emotions and also refine them. And that's kind of the thing. And yeah, if you want to hear more of me singing, check out Worldly Savages, Eric and the Worldly Savages, WORLDLYSAVAGES. It's on YouTube. You can see me singing. Yeah, hope this was interesting for you. I'll catch you guys later. Bye.